So next on our agenda, we're going to take a brief break from Chicago and hear from Bobbi Nance, who's from the Oak Park Park District, and she's going to tell us about how they do what they do.
I'll just have it backtrack for you there, Bobbi.
So I guess I could speak a bit about the land portion of the Chicago Land Group. But I am a project manager for the Park District of Oak Park. I've been working for Oak Park just under 10 years, and I've been working in the field professionally for about 13. One of the things I will say that kind of came up when the other speakers were talking is it's pretty funny, even in a community like Oak Park, we've got a big mix of people, but we definitely have people that understand technology. But when we try sometimes and move towards technology, we get a lot of resistance from the community. One of the biggest examples, especially with Chicago suburban park districts, is our program guide, or kind of the program brochure. A lot of the park districts still print a guide that has every single little program and event and thing that we offer. And anytime we try and go greener and make it easier by just having it online, we get big backlash from the community. The communities that have tried it have actually lost a lot of their participation numbers, have tanked. People really seem to want to register online, but getting that brochure in the mail for people, a lot of people, is still very much a signal that it's time to look through, figure out what you want to do. And even if they're not using that and pulling out the paper form and sending it in, or doing in-person registration, there's still a lot of that really wanting that signal of something in hand first. And I don't know if that's just with people's relationships with their parks. Like it is a very much a people-driven industry, but just kind of know that even as staff, and not just advisory boards, that even internally the park districts themselves are kind of struggling with that issue. In some cases, we want to progress with technology and kind of are getting pulled back, and when it comes to serving customers the best and meeting the most needs, sometimes we struggle with that as well. One of the things I wanted to talk about is some of the things that we're doing internally in our agency to try and use data a little bit more. Most of these initiatives have really just been going on for the past year, but we've already been able to see some really positive results with them, and are hoping that we can kind of be a model for other park districts as well. For those of you that aren't familiar with Oak Park, we're a suburb of about 50,000 people. We share the border with Chicago, on Austin. So we have, size-wise, are much smaller than Chicago. So we have about 55 full-time staff. So definitely a little bit smaller, and that brings a little bit more challenges with us with having the staff on hand to be able to run some of these programs. But one of the things that I've been working on this year was launching our performance measurement program. So we, as an agency, picked certain measures that we were going to track. We have a lot of things with park districts have a lot of data from all of their customers, residents, that kind of stuff. But I would say overall as an industry, we don't necessarily do the best job of using that data. My degree in Parks and Recreation is literally called Leisure Studies. So you can probably guess that most of my classmates probably may not have found math as their favorite subject in school. So anyway, so one of the projects we're doing is I put together a performance measurement program. We branded it and called it Empower, to both play off the idea that the power of measurement, and also that it's hopefully empowering staff to make better decisions. We have hooked set all those performance measures and displayed them in charts and graphs, which makes that math a little bit easier for our staff to comprehend. But we were able to hook it up to all of our different software programs, our program registration software. So we don't use ActiveNet, but there's kind of two biggies in the park and rec world, and so we use the other one. But we have it hooked up to our registration and facility software, finance software, all of our time clock software, our maintenance work order software, our surveying and customer feedback software. So the nice thing about that is staff can go online at any time and load and see live results of where we're at anywhere. It's led to some really great kind of challenges and changes, and even just within a year, things that we've been able to do. One example is we ask customers just for their feedback about their experiences in the park. So sometimes we prompt the customers for that by having some of our park supervisors walk out and talk to customers with a tablet and take data. Customers have the ability to fill it out themselves as well. And it's nice because we have a good relationship with our police department, but we don't hear about things from them until an actual incident has taken place, potentially in the park. But sometimes the customers that are visiting the parks on a regular basis actually can start to feel that maybe there's groups of people hanging out that make them feel a little unsafe, or start to get a feeling about things being unsafe before maybe an incident actually happens. And so since that's one of the things that we track, our dashboarding software, I have it set up so it actually alerts us if those safety perception scores start to drop. So we can start to know in advance, before maybe an incident has happened, that the customers are feeling like maybe things aren't going so well, and can redirect our staff or try and investigate or curb then hopefully an issue before it takes place in our parks. We've used it for staffing decisions. We've seen that, for example, internally, staff weren't very satisfied with some of the trainings that we were offering to have them be better informed staff. So we've actually diverted some funds and changed some staffing around to make improvements in areas that we saw internally where satisfaction and performance wasn't where we wanted it. Some things we started tracking that we had never tracked before, which has been fantastic. Some of it, especially with our customer demographics, has been really enlightening and is helping us kind of spend the limited funds that we have a little bit better. Just this afternoon, someone came into my office and asked, basically, we have an opportunity to advertise in our city's newspaper and on their website for programs. And they said, do you think that this would be a smart investment of funds? And I asked, well, what are you advertising? And so originally they talked about summer camps and that kind of stuff. For us, I said, no way, that's a terrible way for us to use our money, because we've been able to see through these dashboards that actually when it comes to serving youth, in terms of passes, programs, kind of anything where that a youth or their parent has registered the youth or had some sort of interaction with us, we know that we're reaching basically 3/4 of the youth in our community at least once throughout the year, which means we have their contact information. They're already in our programs and facilities. So it really, we are learning, doesn't make a lot of sense for us to spend money on external marketing. If we're going to spend that money, we should spend it on trying to reach them through the information that we already have, do a lot more cross promotion. So instead, we know though with adults, we're not nearly as successful, and especially with seniors. So there may be some cases where if we're going to do that, spend those marketing dollars on some more traditional things like newspapers or that kinds of things, that we shouldn't be doing it any on youth, but more towards adults. So just kind of little things like that we've been able to pick up. I will say it's definitely a challenge, as I kind of mentioned with staff. I wouldn't say everyone is incredibly data minded. The nice thing working for a park district is it's my job to make it fun. So when I launched the Empower program, we literally had a pie chart that was like a pie where it said like pie that has not been eaten and pie that has been eaten. And we had literally like a granola bar chart, just to show that data can be anything. It doesn't have to be these scary numbers, but I think anytime you're working with people who don't work with that on a regular basis, showing that literally, data and a pie chart is as simple as like a pie, quite literally, makes it kind of helps bring it home. Everyone has to kind of keep the dashboards front of mind. We've got stickers and things like that we've really tried to roll out. I've kind of glammed on to the old G.I. Joe saying that knowing is half the battle. So just having the data in front of you and actually being aware of what's going on is what we've really been pushing. And in this latter part of the year, it's really been about pushing pushing then how are we going to use this to make better decisions. Our use of GIS is we've done way less with kind of the traditional trees and things like that a lot of park districts use. We've been using it a lot just to look at our customers and our demographics to find out how our community is split in half by the Ike. So how much does that affect how far people are willing to travel for programs or that kind of stuff. Really looking at the people side of it, which has been really enlightening and exciting for us. But I know that we've had just as much success using tools that don't require access to GIS, like Google Fusion's been really helpful for staff with their ability to use maps with that. And even just looking at like Garmin to find out where people are walking, or there's tons of like walking, biking type of apps where people are constantly tracking all of their data of where they travel or where they recreate. So a lot of those things can be really great resources and are kind of just free to look at. I know some states, like the state of Oregon, actually bought some of that data to use. So that's another place that you could look for data to help. I would say just in terms of the industry and that, just like it was said that, if you help one Chicago advisory board, that you have the potential to spread to a bunch of others. I would say the same thing goes for park districts. Our industry is very much like we pride ourselves if we're able to share with another group. It's like a point of pride if another park district comes and says, I really like that program or that thing you're doing, can I steal it? And we will gladly just be like, yep, here it all is. Can I come over to your office and show you how to do it? Do you want to borrow my supplies? So very much if you can get something going in one place, if others see it, then it's definitely something that can be used. The nice thing, like I mentioned, is a lot of the software that we use is very similar. So across the country, there's really only a couple of different registration and facility management softwares that are used in our industry. There's a lot of different ones, but there's kind of the big ones that you can hit with a lot of people. It's the same thing with the financial software. A lot of the maintenance software is pretty standardized across our agencies. So it's really nice that if you build a tool that can speak with one, then you've probably hit at least a third of the park districts in the area, just because they will also have that software. A couple of other places you might want to look at or consider, though, if you're wanting to help people in the industry, our state and national associations are also trying to get more involved with data. In Illinois, it's IPRA, so the Illinois Park and Recreation Association is kind of the I'll say the more professional development aspect of our field in Illinois, and they actually just launched a community calendar that allows park districts from across the state of Illinois to enter their events in. So there may be the opportunity to add Chicago data to that, but also pull from that as well. There's also just locally with local government, the GIS consortium also is a really great group to look at. And I think the more exciting thing is actually, I don't know if anyone is familiar with NRPA, which is the National Recreation and Park Association, but they've launched a new initiative in the past couple of years called Prorageous. And I'm guessing no one has heard of it, which is okay. Some people, quite a few people in our field haven't either. I cannot remember at this moment what the acronym stands for, except for the GIS part. But essentially what it is they took a standard set of measures, things like how many staff do you have, how many acres do you have, how many playgrounds, from across the board though, from a management aspect, but also how many people do you serve, what kind of services do you offer, and have asked anyone that works for a park and rec agency throughout the country, you don't even have to be a member of NRPA to participate in it, but agencies are able to kind of basically enter their data in, and when they do that, they can get a report that compares them to to nationals, or they can pick compares them to similar agencies. So you could say, I want to compare myself to agencies or communities with the similar population, or pick some sort of demographic so that you can see where you stand. They're trying to also hopefully put together a set of best practices. So for example, I know as mentioned, Chicago won the gold medal, which I have to say, if you did not know, is a really, really big deal. It's like gold medal Olympics, big deal in Parks and Rec. So for example, one thing they may use is take gold medal winners and say gold medal winners that have entered their data into ProRegis, so that a community that has not done that can, in theory, strive to be as good as those top agencies in our field. It's also got a lot of GIS functionality that they've just added to it. So Park and Rec agencies that don't have access to GIS actually, in theory, if they enter their data, do have access to some of that now. And I know that through that program, they also, I don't think they advertise it, but I've heard that they do have like consultant type accounts, or people that are working with the Park and Rec agencies sometimes are able to also gain access to that data to assist in using and also understanding that data. So I would say, just from what we have done in our agency, I am willing to definitely assist or others, or answer any questions. I think what would help us as internal staff would also be tools that could really help Chicago advisory groups, or really anyone in the industry. At the same time, we're also very willing to be the guinea pig too. If you have an idea or something like that and are wanting to work with the group, I think our agency just in the past few years has really seen how data can really help propel us forward. And so we're always looking for opportunities to find new ways to use it as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have one. You said the other system, is that the Vermont RecTrack system?
Yeah, we're on RecTrack. So you can usually tell by people's registration software what system they're on. There's technically 3 right now, because there's of the big ones. There are lots of others. There's another one that's called Class. The Class is essentially going away and saying you need to go to Active.
And Active actually owns Class.
Yes.
Phasing it out.
Yeah. So now it's Vermont or RecTrack versus Class is the battle, basically. But both of them, there's plenty of data that can be extracted. I mean, we have ours set up. We have a lot of tools set up. So for example, we're able to upload all of our data. That's how we get it into our own calendar, is we just do an export from RecTrack once a season after all the information's in. So we have it, our registration software technically lives in this function of RecTrack called WebTrack. But we're able to put it in our own kind of custom calendar just through a quick export. So I know personally I don't like the way their database is organized, but I've gotten a ton of information out of it. So,
you talk about wanting to encourage people to use the online system, and I know that I am a huge fan of my park district. I am there 5 times a week using the fitness center. I'm really a big believer. I'm up at Potawatomi and Rogers Park. Huge fan of what they do, the staff, everything. But when I went to sign up for the fitness center online, there was a fee, and to do it in person, there's no fee. That's like the wrong way. If you want people to use the internet, you got to charge the fee to do it. And I know you're not Chicago, but just those are the kinds of decisions that we make that maybe are not encouraging the behavior that we want to encourage.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's a big thing with government, especially when you're trying to push technology, is like, to be very innovative, you have to fail sometimes, and people are scared to make mistakes. Or, I know when a lot of places went to online registration the first time, there were a lot of people that were like, well, it costs us more, so then we have to pass those credit card fees, for example, or their software passed on some sort of, like I know Active has like a basically transactional fee that gets passed on to the customer in terms of like the park district that runs it. So a lot of times it was like, well, we can't lose that money. Those kinds of things got passed on initially. I think our industry is working on operating a bit more like a business and understanding, but at the same time, then we're also told not to operate like a business. So we have to, I'm sure people that work for Chicago or with can understand that like fine line that we try and straddle.
Sure, and I'm
So,
sure you guys are always
yeah.
having to do more with less funds, especially these days. So that's a huge issue too. But I think there are ways to justify. Maybe you charge a fee for in person, and it's a lesser fee for doing it online.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it definitely depends on the agency. Just like you acknowledged, every government agency is going to be a little bit different. I will say, mindset-wise, ours has very much been, how can we, instead of cutting things, can we get more people in the door and make some more revenue from those, not in a negative way, but every person we can get to sign up for an ice skating lesson is money that comes back that helps us maintain our facilities. So I don't think it's like a negative thing to say that we're trying to get people in the door, but not every agency also has that mindset either, just kind of based on the community and also the boards, and there's a lot of factors there.
Do you have councils too?
We have a board that's elected. So ours is a 5-member board. Most park districts, Chicago Park District, the laws for Chicago Park District are slightly different than they are for the majority of other park districts. They were formed at a different time. But most park districts are either 5 to 7-member boards elected. And then we also have a citizens, the PDCC, so the Park District Citizens Committee, which is, we hope and try and make that a bit of a feeder for the board, so the people that come onto our board have a little bit of experience with the park district, although that's not always the case. And then we also have quite a few other advisory committees. We have a greening advisory committee, a senior advisory committee, an art advisory committee. I feel like I'm leaving one more out.
How many parks do you guys have?
I think we are incredibly compact and tiny, and very jealous of Chicago Park District and actually most other park districts. Just we're very landlocked. I think if you go to Parks and Facilities on the website, you can see a map of all of the facilities we have.
Thanks.
But yeah.
What kind of software tools did you use to consolidate the data you're pulling from multiple systems and your dashboard and all that?
Sure, we're working with a company called iDashboards that's right outside of Detroit, Michigan, so there's several different dashboard kind of companies that are gearing towards government. We really liked those. A lot of the dashboards that are posted that where they are being done, it's a little bit more, here's the table of the data. And we like the fact that with that one, like I said, we were able to really more display charts. Our customer satisfaction scores, the staff can see the numbers, but really they're blocks of green is good and red is bad and yellow is watch out. And you can kind of guess the color scale in between that. So staff were able to look at it and the idea is save the thinking for the analysis and maybe not for the looking or just trying to understand what the data is. So it's taken some training, but yeah, so it's definitely the software. We did not build that in-house. We have had to do some work. For example, some of our software, like our surveying software, is all is like a cloud-based software, and so we had to use their API to essentially create a fake database that's updated every day, that's pulled every day. And so essentially where we don't have those databases, we kind of create faux databases on our server and then can pull from them just like we do those other software packages that we host on site. Right. Well, I would also offer I have business cards if anyone would want them, or you can find my contact information too on the website if you have any questions after tonight.
How much of the bid process? Is it really easier to go online and just put in the permit and then just go from there, or is it very complicated?
We moved all of our, field permits and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're speaking of, or?
For events and,
Oh yeah.
vendors and that kind of process.
So I used to manage those before I moved into this role. So I know all about the world of permitting and working with people. So, I think it's kind of, you have to have software that can kind of put in some of those fail safes for when people aren't completely honest, or more likely the situation is when someone's applying for their permit, they maybe haven't fully thought out all of the details, or just kind of guessing how many people are going to come, or all of that. So we have moved our some of like the smaller permit type stuff, like if you're renting a pavilion, or I'll say like under 50 people ish, sometimes a little bit bigger, all of that is online, and we've kind of just accepted the risk and figured out how to manage it internally with staff kind of checking in on things when we know that those groups are in the parks. For the much larger permits, we do at least have as much of the information online as possible. But the initial permit we're still doing on paper, simply because of the fact that the amount of questions and things that we need to ask in order to make sure we can give an accurate answer. It's a really tough situation, I guess. We try and automate it as much as possible, but to a certain extent, sometimes when you have that page where people can just enter things when they don't know the answer, they leave so much blank, and then we end up having to bring it back to calling them anyway or emailing them like you left this answer blank. So sometimes it's just easier to have that piece of paper, unfortunately, as the starting point for that. But if anyone knows of agencies that have good options for that.
Actually, I wanted to ask a follow-up question regarding online permitting. So for the events that you do allow online permitting, that you have to manually update or manually populate the facility in order to make that happen?
No, we our software has that capability. So we can take it online and either have it just be the customers can automatically book it, or we also have the ability to take the information and essentially have them answer some questions, and then we can approve it, and then it sends the receipt to them.
So does the customer select, like, I want row 7 at this particular park, or I want room whatever at this particular park?
Yes. Yeah, it's it is on our website. Not everything is on there. Like I said, we're like a large concert or something like that. That's more doing the permitting, but room rentals or groves, those kinds of things are all online. You're able to book online. So.
Is a park district looking for projects from the public?
In terms of, like, for an example?
It seems like a park district is looking for projects from the public to register that run interpret.
So like to run a program, or yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
Well, that's part of what we do. I mean, we have, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to ask about the data on this measurement stuff. Do you partner with the Forest Preserve, the Cook County Forest Preserve? Because they've got data also measuring some of the same kinds of things. So.
We do not officially partner with them. Some of what we use for GIS does come from Cook County, the county. We've looked at what they did. One thing that I've just found through performance measures is we have limited, so it takes time to track stuff, and it takes time to look at it, and then it takes time to respond to it. So all of our performance measures are set on those things that in our strategic plan we identified as we want to see movement in these areas. So we track a lot of things, actually, because our dashboards are such really really fascinating tools for staff to look at things. They display things really well. For example, we took all of our data from our facility and registration software, downloaded it, and kind of shot it back into the dashboard, and we're able to look graphically at how much the facilities are used, so we know like when they're used the most, when they're the most full, when they're empty, and that kind of stuff. So we have the nice to know stuff, but when it comes to our measures, those are things that in every single area we're looking for improvement or change. And so, not that we don't want to get better in every single area, but they're a little more strategic than just kind of overall. But that's one struggle we have, and one reason that I kind of try and show off the dashboards as much as possible to other park districts is because there are things we think other park districts should and would probably want to track. I mean, we're all going to want to know how many people come in our programs. Like, that's one thing every park district will always want to know. But there's other things like just looking at our customer demographics and those kinds of things, like how many youth are we reaching in our community. We think that our numbers are good, but we don't know anyone else that's tracking what we're tracking. So if we can get some more agencies to share that kind of stuff, or at least some place where we can find from other agencies that are doing maybe similar initiatives but not necessarily using the same software, that kind of tool for a comparison would be really helpful. And I think that's partially why NRPA started this ProRageous tool, because some of those things will be on there, and the more agencies that fill that out and participate in it, then the more we have to compare ourselves against. And since everyone's answering the same questions for that, can be really helpful. But I have looked at the forest preserve and did speak with someone when we were planning ours. So. Mm-hmm.
Do you use social media data to assess, what you're thinking about different programs, parks, etc.?
We use social media. Our marketing team, I know that they look at kind of the really basic level data that comes back from the individual programs themselves, but beyond, like in terms of web presence at all, we monitor a lot of things from Google Analytics on our dashboards, but not from social media. And actually, if you have any advice or suggestions in that way, I would definitely be willing and interested in hearing it, about like, oh, this is a really great tool to use, or if you know another agency that has. Definitely, because if we can just figure out how to be more effective in any way, I mean, we're all for it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.